Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Alex, and I'm the Senior Director of Operations for the Sexual Health Alliance. Today, I'm joined by sexual health educator Sameera Qureshi for our 5 Minutes of Fame interview. Sameera, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, good to see you, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So just to start out, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. So I currently work with Heart. They're a national nonprofit that focuses on empowering Muslims with sexual health education and confronting sexual violence. And my work started in this field about 12 years ago. I'm an occupational therapist by background and worked in Canada with kids and students and parents, and soon realized that in my work with families that sex ed was not being discussed. And a lot of people were hesitant about that because Muslims thought that it wasn't going to be easy to reconcile with faith tradition. And so I worked with a local sexual health agency there, and we developed faith-based curricula. And I started facilitating with middle school kids and high school kids, and I fell in love with it. And I've been doing the work since then, informally, and then now through Heart full time. So I've been with Heart for about 6 years. And we travel across the country, not right now, we are virtual, but we would travel across the country. And we work with everyone from families and institutions at mosques to college campuses to professionals like those who will be hopefully tuning in for the webinar. And our goal is to empower people to work with Muslims and also for Muslims to be empowered themselves, to really see their sexual health lives as something really important to them.
I love that. I love that you also work with so many different age ranges and not just, middle schoolers or high schools, but the entire families as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that we're hoping to have people understand is we have sexual health from birth to death. And so being able to cater it to different age ranges, I think makes it easier to talk about. So it's not this one-time thing that you talk about at puberty, but it's something that's ongoing throughout the lifespan.
Exactly. I love that. And what are some of your most important everyday values?
It's a good question. I think for me, something that is really meaningful is being able to work on myself as much as I work on the work. And so, and this is mainly an Islamic principle, but I think it's a value that a lot of people have is we can't do this work if we're not making sure that we're the best people that we can be. And so when we talk about sexual health and also preventing sexual violence, this internal work is really important because that's what people have to unlearn as well with these topics. So I often use myself as an example to say, these are the struggles I've had, these are the things that I've had to deal with. And so I work on myself as much as I do the work externally. And I think that means that there's transparency and accountability for myself as a person and hoping that other people would do the same as well.
I love that. I heard a really good quote the other day that you can't pour from an empty glass, and you just really have to make sure you take care of yourself when you're doing this kind of work. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. And what are the top 3 items on your bucket list?
Oh, that's a good question. I have always wanted to write a book, and it's something that I've thought about for many years, and then work just not allowing it because of time. But I would love to write both a children's book and adult book on this topic aimed towards Muslim people. So that's something I'm thinking about that's more work related. A non-work related one is I would love to visit Mecca. As somebody who is very spiritual and practicing Muslim, I just would love to go back to where it all started and be able to experience that historical environment. So that also means travel, which I know right now it's not a great time, but I would just love to be able to travel more. I think it's something that gives a lot of perspective and gratitude.
Well, hopefully after things get better with the pandemic, we'll all be able to take a big trip and you can go there.
Yes.
I know people are going to be itching to get out and travel again in the next, hopefully, year or so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. And who is your sexual health role model?
I have for a long time really admired Emily Nagoski. Ever since I heard her speak in 2016 at the Guelph Sexuality Conference in Toronto, Ontario, and I read her book, and to this day, I reread her book. I'm just incredibly amazed by how she's so articulately and using humor and the cutting edge science just brings it all together in a really practical way. She's my role model, and I met her at one of her masterclass trainings 2 years ago, and like fangirled her, had her autograph the copy of my book. I'm like, can I take a picture of you? And she's like, I remember seeing you a few years ago. And I'm like, yeah, I think I was the only brown person in the crowd, so I stand out.
Oh, yeah.
But she's my role model. And so even her new book that she wrote with her sister is incredible on stress. So she is somebody that I really look up to with how she does the work in such an eloquent, practical way. So that's something that I strive to do.
Yeah, I also love her. I fangirl a lot with different people that I meet at Shaw and through Shaw because of all the amazing presenters that we have. It's a little shell shocking sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. And what is some bad advice you've heard from people in our field give out?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think something that I see, and this really pertains to working with Muslims, but there tends to be a lot of externalization of sexual health and sexuality. And so just telling people to be okay and bold with expressing themselves outwardly in their sexuality, and then especially when they're struggling with it from the inside out, I've seen it's not always helpful, because oftentimes there's inner work and learning that has to be done before people are comfortable expressing themselves so publicly or in a way that's more outward. And so I just find there's this externalization of sexual health and sexuality that I personally would love to see it come more from the inside out. And so that people are finding different ways to tap into that. And then there was one other thing that I was thinking about, and now it slipped my mind. I might have to think about it for a while.
That's fine. Take your
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So the next question, Sexual Health Alliance is centered around providing provocative dialogue and radical collaboration. What does radical collaboration look like to you, and what would you want to see other people in our field do to incorporate that in their work?
I love that radical collaboration. That sounds awesome. I would love people to move outside of their comfort zone and to learn from people who have very different perspectives of understanding. And that goes for myself too. Like when I think about how I work in the field of sexual health, I love having my own learning boundaries pushed by something that is so radically different, because it provides perspective. And I think there's ways that we can find common ground in the work. So I would love to see that happen more. It's like, kind of defining who you are in your work, and then, moving to the opposite end of that spectrum and trying to learn from people who are in a different space. I think there's a lot of discomfort that can happen, and I've experienced that. And oftentimes there's something that I can take away that's really valuable from that learning. So I love that the Sexual Health Alliance is doing that, and I think it's really valuable.
Thank you. I love that too. I think it's really important sometimes to sit in our discomfort, even when it's so uncomfortable, because you do learn a lot just evaluating yourself and your own values and everything.
Absolutely.
All right. And then our last question, tell the world what you're working on and where we can find you.
Sure. So I'm actually in the middle of a transition. So I'll be stepping away from Heart at the end of next week, actually. So I'm leaving the organization because I feel like I've really externalized my work and my identity to this work. And so I'll be taking a bit of a sabbatical for a while. And then I'll be figuring out what the work looks like when it's done from a place of me being more full of my cup, as you said a few minutes ago. And so I think in terms of people wanting to find me, Heart's website is still an awesome place to go, hearttogrow.org. We just revamped it and we have a ton of resources. For myself, I'll be coming up with a website with my name, but right now it's totally not set up. So by email is probably the best way to reach me. And it's very new and uncharted territory for me to not have an answer to that what's next question. And it's really pushing me to not be doing all the time. So probably October, I'll have more concrete thoughts about book projects and maybe some education initiatives that are focused on specific parts of the Muslim community. But right now it's like focused on filling my cup for the next month or so.
I love that. I think that's really valuable, and we're just excited to see what you have going on next, but also take your time and enjoy yourself during this time where everybody has to kind of slow down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good timing, I think.
Thank you so much, Sameera. And you can also find her leading an online workshop for SHAW on August 29th. Tickets are still available, and we hope to see you there.